Beautiful.
Oh, yes! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Sell the Goalie, the only Flyers podcast, the People's podcast, the Players podcast, Prognosticators podcast, Pampers podcast, Feline podcast. By the way, remind me, the Pampers podcast was like a real thing. We got to give a shout out to one of our longtime listeners who sent us a picture of their newborn baby. We'll get there in a second, but we really are the Pampers podcast, the only Flyers podcast. I'm Russ Joy at Joy on Broad, joined as always by the man, the myth, the legend, Chris Terrian, Bundy. Find him on Twitter at CTerrian6. How you doing, fella?
I'm doing good, Russ. Good to see you, buddy. Getting ready for the big Easter weekend. I know it's Passover as well, so a lot of stuff going on, and everybody, I could tell, a lot of busy travel outside today. Cars all over. People getting ready for their big weekend. I don't know if you're going to leave your house. Are you leaving for, Sunday to head down to the Flyers game for that home game Sunday?
That's a negative. We're going to be hosting Easter here at our house, and very happy to not be getting on the road on Easter Sunday. As you mentioned, it's I guess when this episode comes out, it'll be Passover, so happy Passover to those listeners. I don't know about you. You have kids who are younger than me. I don't know if this was a thing for them. I remember as a little kid watching the Rugrats Passover special, and it's like the only episode of the Rugrats I remember. But we are not Jewish, but we show our kids the Rugrats Passover episode. I think we bought it on Amazon Prime one year, so if nothing else, I'll have a working understanding of what Passover is. So I guess we'll all celebrate together. And then Easter on Sunday, I won't. We are looking here. I will not be sacrilege, but we are looking to kind of bring this team from a tomb of sorts and bring them back and renew hope. So the Easter season, let us be filled with hope and joy. We'll get there in a second. The Flyers are bad, but the reason for hope and excitement maybe is that the team is bad. They're trying, but they're bad. And so their draft pick chances are getting a little bit better. And I guess ultimately that's the thing that we can take maybe the most satisfaction in and the most hope for the future from. Right, Bundy? Is there anything else that people should be looking forward to right now?
No, there's been clearly a flipping of the page by the Flyers in terms of what they're doing with the hockey thing since the Giroux trade. But they have a lot of work ahead of them, Russ. I'm not going to sit here and try to fudge what the numbers look like or mislead people. This is not going to be good for a long time, and I don't care who's healthy next year or who isn't. This is going to be a very, very long and tough process for everybody involved. And that's what happens when your team gets put into a situation like this over the years where it's not addressed and you put Band-Aids over top of things that needed casts and full operation. This is the result of it. And I'll tell you what, the biggest worry you have is, what happened. And again, I know we'll talk about this as we approach the end of the year, but what does next year look like? Like, who's going to run this team? Because if it's not done properly, you could be the Buffalo Sabres. Like, I'm telling you, that's how dire it could be, because the difference between having a couple of really good players on your team and not having a couple of those really good players is the difference in everything. And I'm very, very fearful for the future of this franchise in terms of what it's going to look like in the next 5 years, because I don't think it's going to be very good. And that's not trying to be miserable. I'm just being realistic of what I think is coming down the pike. And I think people realize that too. I really do. I think the fans, this is a town you can't fool the fans in. They've tried to do that. They've tried to gaslight them in many ways, telling them how good the team is. And then you come in this year. I mean, I don't know what kind of hockey pugnant would have said at the beginning of the year, this team is really good and it's going to have a good playoff run. I didn't even think it was going to make the playoffs. And, a couple of injuries, we found out just how truly bad it was. And you can't have a team that has a deficit of a couple injuries and you can't hold your head above water. And that's what we've been dealt with. I don't know what the talent looks like. It looks okay. Guys have come on a little bit, like Morgan Frost. I don't know what Bobby Brink. Like, I have to see a lot of him down the road. I haven't seen him play honest to God, till the final game in college hockey this year and a little bit of the two god-awful Flyers games that he was introduced to. So, but it's going to be a lot of pain, Russ. It's going to be a lot of pain, buddy, and I can't really put it any other way.
What's that old expression? Pain is just weakness leaving the body. Isn't that it? So, I guess right now that's kind of what we're doing, right? We're going through the pain in the short term. Now, you think about it, there are young players that in in theory, that you hope that you can kind of build around and you can give some meaningful minutes to here and get some NHL games under their belt. Bobby Brink is a guy who's a perfect example of somebody who, going into the season, I don't think anybody envisioned a scenario where we get to the end and you'd maybe have Bobby Brink in here for 10, 11 games. But that's where they're at right now, and that's okay. And, if there is a silver lining in this season being as dreadful as it's been, it's that you do finally get the chance to see some of these college players make that transition. I mean, it is trial by fire. This team is going to get blown out. They got blown out recently. What was it, 8-2? And that
9-2.
9-2. And for as bad as that feels, and for as upset as Twitter obviously was, because Twitter is always upset about virtually everything, like, those things are going to happen. The positive is you're not getting blown out 9-2 while being sold a bill of goods that, like, we think that we can contend for the playoffs. That happened last year. Remember all those games that they played against the Rangers where they got their doors blown off consistently? And yet they tried to tell us that, well, this could be a playoff team. We still believe. We think that we're a piece or two away from being a legitimate playoff contender. Yeah, and then once you get in there, you never know what's going to happen. It's like, I'm fine with 9-2 losses. I mean, it sucks, and it's not good for anybody's confidence, I guess, going forward here. But at the same time, you're fielding a team that's full of AHL guys, a bunch of guys who came up from the college ranks, and guys who are lowered on your depth chart that have now had to fill in by virtue of the trades that you've made and some of the injuries that you have. You're without your top two centers. You're without your number one defenseman, right, among others. You traded away probably the player who had the best season to this point in your captain. There's a lot of turnover here. And, oh, by the way, you fired your coach in the fall, and you have a guy who's, a lame duck head coach serving as an interim. So, and there are also questions about the front office as well, about what's going to happen there, if there are going to be any changes made. Like, there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding this team. So the positive, and I don't know if you feel the same way, is that it doesn't look like these guys, for the most part, have shut down and have given up on the season, because there is that hunger element, that desire and that knowledge that this might be my only opportunity, or one of my only opportunities, to put myself on real NHL game film, not just for this organization, but for any other organization that might be interested.
Yeah, I mean, look at JVR, right? I mean, the fire's getting a little hot under his seat, but, he's really come out on fire the last two. I mean, he's working hard. Believe me, I've been around guys that were on expiring contracts or are starting to hear rumors as the last 10 games come down, and man, it's amazing all of a sudden that concerted effort that you see and doing things that you hadn't done maybe the other 60 games. I mean, that's not saying JVR all of a sudden changed his game this year. He's been the same player pretty much his whole career.
Yep.
What you just said, Russ, is all the things you just mentioned about the Flyers. That's, if you add them all up, that's what you call a shitty team. It is. Yeah. A coach fired in the fall, a bunch of college kids, trading the captain, lame duck coach, possible lame duck GM. That's called a brutal team. And that's called the one that needs a full rebuild and a retool. We've been saying it all year. Maybe now they're starting to maybe understand that that's what it's going to take. Probably need to get a couple of real high first-round picks in the next 2 out of 3 years, and make sure that those guys pay off. It's funny when you look at the Rangers, right? Like Kakko and Lafreniere, two really high picks, right? One went first, the other went second. Their numbers are not off the charts for guys that went that high. And I don't know if they look back and said, maybe were they considered bad draft years? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that looks going forward. But again, even if you get really, really high picks, it doesn't assure you of anything, right? It doesn't assure you a point a game. I mean, when you look at a guy like Kakko the other night, I know he's had some injuries this year, but he still only had, I think, like 8 goals up to that point in 40 games.
Yeah.
So, and that was the second overall pick. Same thing with Lafreniere. So I'm just telling you, it's important to find the right chemistry of who you're bringing in. You can't just bring guys in to fit the bill or of what you think. There has to be some kind of a process to it. And until they get people in that are willing to go through that process, it's going to be more of the same until they figure this out.
Let's really quick touch on the high pick thing. So Tankathon, love Tankathon. Great site. We used this for years with the Sixers while they were actively, and everyone knew they were tanking because they had at least some vision. I can hear Anthony, wherever he is right now, not recording with us. I can hear him off in the distance. Hey, I haven't won anything yet. they're going to go out in the first round of the playoffs this year. Sure, you have an elite talent. You have an MVP candidate in Joel Embiid. Tankathon currently has the Flyers with the fourth best odds, right? So they have the fourth worst points percentage right now in the NHL. It seems relatively inconceivable that they're going to be able to break into, I don't know, the way that things are going right now. They're on 57 points. Could, if they lose out and Seattle pulls together a few overtime losses, could you maybe get to the top three? Maybe there's a way.
All of a sudden, Atkinson's hurt for the weekend, and so is the defenseman for the Flyers there.
There's a couple of 4 or 5 guys. Let me find the tweet because I saw it was Olivia from the Philadelphia Inquirer put the tweet out of all of the injuries as of Friday morning. Where are we at? There it is. It's Cam Atkinson, Carter Hart, Cam York, Rasmus Ristolainen, Patrick Brown. All 5 were not on the ice for practice. Nate Thompson, though, is back, which is a big boost. And let's be honest here. If you're trying to tank, Nate Thompson should not be on that ice. That man can go out there and get a hat trick in the first period.
That man could deprive the other team of an actual goal-scoring chance.
That's it.
He can do that. Nate Thompson's been around a while. Seriously, if you're looking at tank, he's probably not the guy to have in the lineup. That's a compliment to Nate Thompson, by the way. I have no problem with guys like Nate Thompson. Like, he's been around a long time. He's been a good locker room guy. He does what he's supposed to do. But again, dude, the top 6 of this team, dude, is either got to be shipped or just completely retooled because it's not getting it done. All they have to do is just play like they did the last couple of days, and they'll be fine. I mean, they'll have a chance of getting that pick as high as possible. Now looks like you're sitting guys, and you're at the point now where you're the GM, and you probably had somebody telling you, "Hey, if a guy's got a hangnail and he can help our team the next day, get him out of the lineup." That's seriously, because that one up in the draft might mean something. And I know those discussions happen. I've been around long enough, and I've been around the closed doors many times where I've seen things happen. I'm not saying there's a tank theory that goes in, but I will tell you this: if some guy does have a little ticky hangnail, we're not going to play through that right now because other things are far more important than that hangnail.
It's not tanking. It's not actively putting your best foot forward.
It's depriving your team of a full opportunity to go out and win the game that night. But you know what, Russ? We never want to question injuries. I always say, walk a mile in another man's shoes that's injured and let me know how that is. So I'm never going to say anything about an injured player. If Cam Atkinson's hurt and those guys are injured and banged up, get healthy soon, and we hope to see you back in the lineup next week.
Atkinson doesn't strike me as a guy who would be out of the lineup for funsies.
Yes, so that's really where I'm at. No guy's going to just get taken out, but if there's something going on and there's veteran guys that have a couple of years left or time, isn't it funny the guys that have it all have some time left on their contracts and everything, and it's all cushy for next year. So I mean, again, and if the Flyers, believe me, if they can get from, let's say, the 4th best odds to moving up a pick by somehow with the draft lottery, though, I'm not opposed to depriving the fans of an opportunity to see like the best possible team. But listen, nobody's going to these games now anyway, especially coming down the stretch. And with weather the way it's turning, I don't think anybody's going to want to spend an Easter Sunday or whatever a day sitting in a Flyers game with the way this team is put together right now. It's a moot point, to be honest with you.
The team is bad. The organization did something nice this week. So we're going to give them their flowers. I don't have any flowers, Bundy. I don't know if you have any near you in that office. You have that shrub behind you, right? Am I seeing foliage behind your head? All right, so
that's one of those fake plants.
All right, so we'll give the fake plant to the Flyers organization this week. They did something really nice. They actually did a couple of things in the past week that have been nice. They sent Lou Nolan down to ice level in celebration of his 50th season with the team. Dave Scott came out and said he would pay the fine if the NHL wanted to fine them for sending him down to do his job at ice level. I think it's probably safe to say that would be a Snider-esque thing to say and to do. So that's going to land well. It landed well. One thing that I think is fair to say is that, like, we obviously have been a show that is not afraid to call out when the organization does something that's bad or that we perceive as bad or that a large segment of fans reach out to us and express the same mentality on something. We earlier this season said, hey, the not acknowledging the birthday of Ed Snider, especially that it was a nationally televised game, Not exactly a great look. A lot of fans were upset. Some people told us that we were like conspiracy theorists, that we were nut jobs, that the Flyers hadn't, wished the guy or hadn't acknowledged his birthday for the last few years on Twitter. Just because you haven't done something right for a bunch of years doesn't mean that it's okay, right? Like, it's just silly. But I think they made up for it in a big way in the past week. Anthony wrote a thing over on crossingbroad.com about all the good things they did, but they acknowledged the anniversary of the passing of Ed Snider. I don't know how you felt about this. I know you've been critical as well. This, if nothing else, felt like a decent olive branch, and it at least shows some awareness about how upset they had made a segment of the fan base, a few months ago. This kind of felt like a make good. I think they did a good job with it, all things considered.
Well, I mean, you have to wonder. I wonder what changed. Like what happened? Why they blew the alumni weekend? Like, they'll never get a gimme back on that. They destroyed it. I mean, someday we'll get down into like what I've heard from the actual players of the alumni about that weekend. I mean, it was a dumpster fire. It was an absolute disaster. Most things they've done have been a disaster, to be honest with you, since they've come in. I mean, this is why corporate America and the hacks that they bring in to run these places just don't. I mean, either you have to have passion. There's certain cities where you can do that. You can send somebody into a sports town where the fans don't care, and you could send some corporate person in to run the show and run it into the ground, and nobody will really notice. You can't do that here in this city, and I think the fan base understands it. This is a passionate, old school fan base. And when you come in and you deliberately, in the eyes of many people, just try to tear down what was built before you for the betterment of whatever you're trying to sell, which appears to be an orange mascot, this doesn't fall on blind eyes, Russ, or deaf ears. This is a building now that's had 5,000 people in it. This Flyers were a bad team in 2007. They were selling out still. Yeah. So, has the game changed a little bit that's drawn the crowds down? It has. I mean, I think the lack of physicality overall and generally in the game has hurt the sport. I think a lot of the character that was once part of the game is no longer part of it. So I'm not blaming it all on the Flyers business brass. But to me, you should never hold that position, to be honest with you, if you don't have an inkling of what's going on in the city. And, I think they've done just an absolutely a terrible job carrying the torch from Ed Snider. And I think that's what really, I'll say, people might say half. I think it's 3/4 of the fan base that's been utterly disgusted and of what's gone on. Was this week a good thing? It was. I mean, they brought the Snider family in. They're great people. I know they're not part of it, but I mean, I guess you have to start somewhere. And if that's an olive branch or an admission of a mistake or saying, hey, we messed up, then I'll accept that, and I'll take it for what it's worth. It's a good thing that they did that. And, certainly 6 years since Ed Snider passed. And, I don't think, and I'll be honest with you, Russ, everybody knows it. The team's not been the same. It's not been the same at all. The organization's not been the same. It's reverberated through the Delaware Valley that this is not the same thing. I think what they've lost is their connection. They're bringing in people that had really, they bring guys in that to try to on whose idea? Like, why are they making so many of the robust changes that they are? And all you have to do, to be honest with you, is go ask anybody that worked in the business office and ask them what their experience was like. I'd like to do that. I could probably get 50 people to come on and express what their thoughts are of the Flyers business side, and I'd love to do that someday, to have their expressions viewed on this show. But you know what? I don't have enough time in a day to do that. I think enough of it's been sold already this year. But yeah, do I want to say something nice about? Great job. You guys finally did something that actually acknowledged the past and the person that brought Flyers hockey to the Delaware Valley. So great job. None of you have jobs if it's not for the man. So awesome job by all of you. I mean, what do you want me to do? Cartwheels, Russ?
I don't know.
It should have been done. It should be done every single time there's a home game on that.
When's the last time you did a cartwheel?
I never have done a cartwheel, but I could certainly try.
Come on, man.
Maybe when I was like 4,
okay,
Russ.
Thank you. All right. I want to see.
Yeah.
Listen, guarantee me that by.
You want to see me do a cartwheel now?
I'm not saying right now. We don't need the fake plant falling off the shelf. All right. I don't need you breaking an arm. We don't need that. I was just wondering. I haven't done a cartwheel in a long time. I do think it's hard, right? Because have a lot of bad things been done? Yes. Is there Is there / has there been a general sentiment of a poor work environment? Yeah, like there certainly has been, right?
Yeah.
And there obviously are people who would, kind of clap back and snap at that and say that that's all nonsense, but it's not. But okay.
Oh, it's 100% true. I'd be, like I said, I'll get the interviews.
But the thing to keep in mind here is, all right, if you crater public sentiment, right, to the point that they had, and this isn't just a tinfoil hat theory here, right? Like, they had cratered a decent chunk of this fan base that I would say, if you were going to say in the past that Flyers fans wear orange-colored glasses, right, where they just refuse to see the fault with their team, they refuse to see the facts in front of them that their team isn't good enough to compete. It was one of those things that Flyers fans got railed on by all kinds of Philly fans, right, by all kinds of other Philadelphia fan bases, that these fans come out, they spend their money, they go to these games, and their team has no shot of winning, but they always think that they can. Well, we've heard from how many season ticket holders at this point that they haven't renewed, or that they didn't renew last year or the year before. So that's not us just carrying some kind of negative torch because we like to. In fairness, I would love to come on this show every week and be positive because we're happy about the team on the ice. We're hearing good things from the people who work for the organization on the hockey side and on the business side, and that it's a successful, inclusive environment. But it hasn't been that, right? So maybe it has been for some, but it hasn't been for all. And whether you say it's the squeaky wheel gets the oil, I don't know, I don't care. The thing is, it hasn't been perfect. Most corporate settings aren't. Most teams aren't. Maybe it's what made the Flyers so different under the Snider, regime, is that people felt more included. They felt more of a family atmosphere. I don't know how many teams in the NHL would say the same thing, even now or even 10 years ago. It's hard to say. I don't know every owner. I don't know every person who's worked for every organization. But when you go from the kind of sentiment and the kind of feeling that people had around this organization, then you saw it kind of change and go that more corporate model and maybe not feel quite as loving, inclusive, whatever you want to say. Well, you had torn things down to an extent. Now, how hard you've torn it down or how much of a crater you've created, well, that's up to different parties to decide. But you at some point have to acknowledge that there was a problem and then move forward. Now, I don't think this is breaking any news. We've heard that there are some people from the Flyers cast who have been consulted or who have been brought into discussions about how to fix things. This is not, from all accounts, or by many accounts, something that, the folks who have been running the show across the board for the last few years just up and had an epiphany, right? So, if nothing else, it is nice to know that there might be a friendly voice or two from Flyers past, from Snider past, that might be trying to turn things around. The hope here is that it's not just going to be this one night, right? That it's not just going to be one tribute, or it's not just going to be, the one sending Lou Nolan down and saying you're going to pay the fine. It's trying to rebuild that trust with your fan base. You don't have to care about us. Don't give a shit about me or you or Anthony. That's fine. Whatever. But you should want to reach back out to the fan base that you've kind of made to feel not so great. You have lost season ticket holders. You have lost a feeling of connection to this team from a large segment of the fan base. You have to acknowledge it. It seems like this was a good starting point. And the fact that the Flyers brought back two of the Snider daughters, Lindy and Serena, who were in Val Camilla's suite, that's a great step. It seems like the team and Snider Youth Hockey have maybe started to mend some of the fences. There are some within the organization who say things were never bad. And then there are people from the other side who say that things were absolutely atrocious. So you kind of weave these two things together, find your truth in the middle if you so choose, but it feels like, if nothing else, they've taken a good step here. Now it's a matter of seeing if they follow through. It has to be more than a one-time gesture. It has to be more than that, but it's a good start.
Well, yeah. Good job. Seriously, I mean, but to me, I mean, they should have been doing this to begin with.
Sure.
So what, am I going to give them kudos for something they should have done anyway? I mean, wake up. Seriously, wake up. and do the right thing. They should have done it from the beginning. It wouldn't be a story. If you handled Alumni Weekend, you didn't ruin the entire 2-day event. If you didn't shove a mascot into the entire stands every day like they've done for years and decided that was what the product was, you wouldn't have heard from us. Take care of your fans. They're the ones that have stuck up have been there for this team since its infancy in Philadelphia.
It is interesting.
I'm glad they did the right thing. I hope they continue doing it.
It is interesting to see the number of people who have gone down to games, however many that has been, that have reached out and said that they haven't seen Gritty as much of a focal point of the presentation of the game. Which is interesting. It would seem to mean that, between people who maybe read our site or listen to the podcast or are part of a similar thought process, I guess, have gotten the word out, whether it's social media, emails, talking to their ticket reps, town halls, however they've gotten the word back to the organization. It's pretty clear that some things have changed, especially when it comes to the in-game presentation of Gritty. By the way, Gritty, good for kids. Good for a lot of different things. I sure hope that going into next season, this team makes a much more concerted effort to try to sell fans on the team. We want to see the team. We want to see the players. Gritty can absolutely be an ancillary to like a secondary, tertiary character in the marketing campaign, but shouldn't be the focal point. We'll see. And it's also, in fairness now, the counter is, well, this team hasn't really had stars. Claude Giroux was their star. That's fair. We can go there. But then you better hope that you can figure out who you're going to market around for next year. Teams across this league and across professional sports market their best players, even if they're not star players, right? There are a lot of bad...
Not the mascot, right?
There are a lot of bad teams.
Gritty He's been the face of this franchise for 2.5 years now. And that can't happen.
Even across the street at Citizens Bank Park, right? You see the Fanatic. The Fanatic is not the thing that leads all the marketing campaigns. And that even goes back, by the way, before anybody jumps on me, before I get like a text or an email from anybody who's upset about this, it's true. If you go back to that 2013 to let's say 2018 period where things were especially bad, the Fanatic was still featured. The Fanatic is still part of the commercials and the marketing scene.
He's in the background.
But you see some of the players. That's how this has to. If you're going to have a bad team next year, which is entirely possible, if you're going to try to retool this thing and try to sell people on the idea that this is somehow going to be a playoff team next year, right? You need to get people behind those players. It can't just be behind Gritty. You have to market your players better. Cam Atkinson seems like a nice guy. Seems like a good guy. Some of the stuff that we've seen from videos that they've released in the past, the behind-the-scenes stuff, good. Scott Lawton, great chirper. Could be a lot of fun. Travis Konechny, if he's here, good chirper. A lot of fun. Kevin Hayes, a guy with personality. There are people on this team to build some marketing around. Please do it. I beg.
Imagine if the Eagles, right? Listen, this is very much a hockey town when it's a good hockey town. But imagine if the Eagles were awful by the 9th game of the year, right? They were 2-7 or 3-6. And then the Eagles decided that throwing a heavy dose of swoop to the fan base would be a really good thing and get people back into the building. That's the stuff and the crap that we've dealt with. Now I was a former player. I played here a long time. Now I'm a fan. I want the team to do well. I want the team to win a Stanley Cup. I want the fans to have fire trucks going up and down Broad Street with players on it celebrating. That's what we long for as former players. You can't shove a mascot down the fans' throats and expect them to come out and see that for $100. It's an embarrassment. It's a disgrace. And quite frankly, it's added to a part of why the Flyers are in the pea soup they're in right now. And most of this, the old school fan base in the city that still reverberates around to it has a lot to say and a lot to show for it. It's funny, last week, there's one guy on social media when a lot of these truths were being told. And someone pointed out last week, the people that defend the team the most on social media happened to be those fans, ironically, that were waiting in the penalty box to stand in the team picture. Isn't that interesting how that happens? I find that absolutely unbelievable. Great stuff. It's really, really good stuff.
You mentioned the team picture, and we need to talk about this before we head out here. Ryan Ellis wasn't in the team picture. I'm assuming that you've heard some of the same things that I've heard about Ryan Ellis's status with this team, where he's at, or he's reportedly at behind the scenes. I don't think anybody's come out in public with this, but about maybe his feelings about the organization, about what he was sold on when he was traded here, about what the future could look like with this team, and perhaps even the handling of his injury situation this year. He has not been around, and he wasn't in the team picture. It was reported that he was getting treatment that morning when they took the picture, and that's why he wasn't there. But I haven't heard a lot of great things behind the scenes about Ryan Ellis's relationship with this organization as it currently stands, whether that's the front office or that's medical set. Like, he doesn't seem like a happy player. I would say behind the scenes.
I've heard rumblings, Russ, and I don't want to get into them right now. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. I think that we haven't touched on that we may have to address in the next 3 weeks. There's a lot of little things that have absolutely nothing to do with hockey with this team that I think will actually, it possibly could be a major league story of its own. But with the medical staff and Ellis, I mean, again, I've heard rumblings through the years or through this year that there's been a disappointment on both sides of it. I don't know really in terms of what's gone on. He's clearly injured, and Chuck acquired an injured player in the offseason. Whether or not the player – so sometimes what happens is, when I'm just going back to my playing days, the player can become frustrated with the medical team over his own injuries, and when they run out of places to blame it, they put it on the current staff. I'm not saying that that's the case here at all. I don't know that. Whatever it is, we will find out before the end of the year. I will assure you that we will hear the truth will always come out. And it'll be interesting to see how that story develops as we approach. It's very, very odd, Russ, that a player would not be in a team picture. That speaks absolute volumes about the relationship on both sides, because that player, regardless, has played a game here. He's been a member of this organization. He's been on the roster. To not be in the team picture, if that's really the case, I didn't know that. Is a huge, huge statement by both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, make no mistake about that. That is a very, very telling story.
Yeah, and I guess the only rebuttal here, I guess, for people who say, well, he was getting treatment. You're a professional athlete. Those things can be rearranged. It's not a...
I did hear another part, though. I heard that team picture was like a revolving door of people coming up. So we used to take the team picture, right? I'd heard somebody said to me, oh, my God, if it was you guys' team picture in like 2001, we'd have had 9 guys screaming at people. Because apparently it took an hour, and not one player, not one coach, brass said, let's get things moving here. It was like that's why I said the revolving door of the social media angels for the Flyers, the protectors that were getting themselves in the pictures. I know that, too. I heard for like 4 people. It was hilarious. So I find that actually kind of funny. Nobody asked us in the team picture, Russ.
No.
We just gave them kudos this week for the great job they did.
Maybe we will now. We said something positive. Maybe we will. We get Photoshop you.
I'm in enough team pictures. I don't need to be in
picture
anymore.
if you want. Do you want that? Do you want to be in the front or in the back?
I love
Do you want
that.
to sit in the front? Do you want to be in the back?
No, I was always in the middle row, right behind the guys. That's where I kind of fit for like 12 years. That was a good spot.
Can I superimpose you in the background, kind of like fade it out, kind of like a godlike figure, kind of overseeing?
Let me tell you how it works with a team picture. If you want to find out exactly who you are in the team, just look at where they put you in the team picture. That's it. If you're in the 3rd row, that means that you're probably teetering somewhere between the minors and the NHL. That's what they think of you. If you're in the 2nd row, you're solid NHLer. 1st row, you're supposed to be the bulk of the team. That's true, actually. Yeah, we used to joke about it when a guy was like, hey, Bob, we want you to go to the back row 2nd from the end. That means your time in the league is probably coming to an end.
So how many team pictures were you 2nd from the end in the back row?
Nope, middle row every time.
That's right.
All the way through.
That's right.
Right in the middle, 2nd row, Russ. That's called solid.
That's why I said it. By the way, I probably could pull this up here. You know me with the tech, and how I was really proud of myself last week for for bringing up the video and the Ronick tweet on the show.
Yeah.
But we did have a listener send us probably the best picture of the week. I would say it was the thing that collectively lifted the spirits of, I believe you and I were both tagged in this. It was BJ Beretta, who's a longtime listener and viewer of the Press Row Show. And let me see if I can whip this up here really quick for those who are watching. By the way, I think we talked about this last week, but if you're listening to the show on your favorite podcast feed, don't forget, we do put the podcast out there on the YouTube channel, the Crossing Broad YouTube channel, youtube.com/crossingbroad. Let me see. You should be able to see this now. So BJ Beretta tags us in a tweet, and there we go. She's a future 5-star reviewer, got MJ's mom a projector to stream shows while nursing as a push present for 34-hour labor. C-section after Ironman streak established despite JR's objection, but great for viewing Snow the Goalie too. And then tagged each of us in there and said, better than Mr. Rogers. How about that?
I don't know if I saw. I got to go look for that. That is an absolutely gorgeous little
Look at
baby.
that little baby. Look at that little baby.
That is something cute right there.
And then BJ even says she definitely can up the Pampers talk on the self-proclaimed Pampers podcast. But when it comes to piles of poop, the 2021-22 Flyer season is worse than anything I've ever changed. So how about that? What a great moment. You know what? This is why we love the people who listen to the show, who watch the show on the YouTube channel. We do this for fine folks like BJ Beretta. And listen, hopefully, I don't remember if there was any profanity on last week's episode. If there was, sorry to the baby, but still have time until they start mimicking it back. So we got that going for us. So anyway, Bundy, I think that's probably about as good as we can do, given where the team is at right now. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast because you want Bundy to break down all the pros and cons of what he's seen out of Owen Tippett, you might be waiting for a while. Next season, maybe, or at the end of this season, we'll go back and kind of take an idea or a macro viewpoint of, the things that we liked and disliked from each player's game after we've seen enough of a sample size. But realistically, we're looking to turn the page here. There isn't that much of a season left, thankfully. Mercifully, the season is almost over. If you are looking for a reason to believe, if you're looking for something to hang on to, something to obsess over, go over to tankathon.com, pull up the NHL draft simulator, draft lottery simulator, and Bundy, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to click on Sim the Lottery. Let's see. The first one I did, Bundy, the Flyers fall from 4 to 6. Not good. All right, I'm going to try it again. I like to do these things more than once. Nope, they're 6th again. All right, do it again. Hey! First overall pick. Time number 3, first overall pick. We're going to stop it there. That's good. So we got 6-6-1. That's not great, Bundy. Not great. Not ideal.
That's like one of those hope for things, Russ. Listen, the balls are going to get rung in the machine, and they're going to come out how they come out, and there's nothing we can do about it. Just think about the luck that we got, 4 or 5 years ago with Nolan Patrick Flyers getting plopped out at number 2, and look what they did with that.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So, again, it's luck winning that lottery as high as you can. It's execution, though, getting the players together the way they did. You know what? I know we were talking a little bit earlier too as we wrap up, but I know that with Ed Snider too, there's so many players had so many stories. I think that's why it's important, really, the Flyers. And again, we have given them a hard ride sometimes this year. Not that they haven't deserved it, but Ed Snider and the legacy he left here for the players and the fans and the people that played here for him, it is so revered through the area and so accepted. It's just he is the Philadelphia Flyers. He will always be the Philadelphia Flyers. Bob Clark said it himself. He is the team. Yep. And he will forever be the team. So I think that I just think that acknowledgement is really, really important from that standpoint. They did a good job. And you know what? I think the reason the players had so much respect for him is that he always had their backs as a player. And he was very much like one of the players, right? So he's able to put himself into that atmosphere with the guys, be one of the boys through generations, right? Like he was a younger man when he first bought the team, and he kind of grew in with those guys, but he never changed the way he treated his players. He may not have liked you as a player, but he respected that you were on his team. And to that, that's why I think this year had frustrated me in a sense of those things that they'd forgotten his birthday. They did a good thing this week, and it was really nice to see Lindy and Serena in that box. This is their dad's baby. Like this has been the franchise or team in this city that has, I think, brought more pride to the people of this city because of what they did in their infancy. They gave an identity to the city, right, through the Broad Street Bullies and the toughness. And I think that's to be celebrated because it was Ed Snider that really did that. And he could see ahead. St. Louis Blues beat up the Flyers. He said it's never going to happen again. And he changed the culture of the team and changed the culture of what the city was. And for that, he should never be forgotten ever. And that's why I get so passionate about it. And a lot of the players did also.
It's a good note to end it on. Very good note.
It is. I also want to make a couple of announcements too, Russ.
Please make some announcements.
Ice Wars. I will be broadcasting the Ice Wars, which is actually a really interesting thing. I'll give you the on Twitter. It's Ice is War. Mm-hmm. Ice is War. And today they'll be announcing a couple of guys later on in the day. I mean, these are absolute, just animals. So it's prize fighting on ice. I'm going to be in Edmonton on May 21st. Tickets are $65 for in-seats in Edmonton. It's going to be a $20 pay-per-view. And next week, if you did see the Netflix special...
You be careful making announcements and promises like this, because if it doesn't work out, then people are going to hold your feet to the fire. Maybe we need to hold off on the announcement. We'll put it on social media.
Well, I'm not going to say it. I'm hoping I'm going to have a very special guest next week. Actually, I can almost guarantee this, Russ. When I pull through with something like this, it gets done. All right.
I believe you.
It happens. So we're looking forward to having two really interesting guests. I think next week if we'll pull it off. I feel pretty comfortable, but Ice is War, International Ice Wars is what it is, and it'll be interesting. I think it's a new line of prize fighting on ice. Some of these guys were former players, and it'll be certainly something for the spectators' viewing pleasure, Russ, as we will say. So thanks for letting me plug that.
Absolutely.
Have a happy Easter, happy Passover to everybody in the Delaware Valley. Love you all. We got a lot of Flyers hockey this week. We had some Sixers too, Russ. We're not going to talk about it, but I do feel... I'm going to tell you right now, I think Nick Nurse, yes, I follow basketball. I have $3 basketball, is going to coach Doc Rivers right off the floor. I'm probably going to take a lumping for this, but I don't really care.
Who the hell is going to give you – no, pause, time out. The next Doc Rivers defender, who's an actual Sixers fan, will be the first one I've ever met.
Oh, good. Yeah, see, I haven't been down to a Sixers game this year, but I just feel like Toronto seems like they've come on lately.
Doc Rivers is an absolute fraud. This is a man who is there to collect a paycheck. This is a man who, for much of his career, has coached future Hall of Famers. And it's not that he developed these future Hall of Famers. His lone NBA title came when he had 3 future Hall of Famers in Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen. And he only won 1 title. Yeah. He goes out to Los Angeles, where he coaches arguably a top 5 all-time point guard in Chris Paul. He's got the Lob City Clippers out there. Still can't get the job done.
He's got Kawhi Leonard.
Can't get the job done, right? He has Kawhi and he has Paul George. Does he get anything done there? No, he certainly does not. Whether you want to say Paul George is a number 2 or a 1B kind of player, Kawhi Leonard is a multiple-time NBA champion who's won a title with 2 different teams, couldn't get the job done there. He says he's ready to walk away from the game for a while until the Philadelphia 76ers bring his mopey ass out of quasi-retirement. They bring him in. He's gifted an MVP candidate, arguably the best center he's ever coached. He's brought in to massage egos, Bundy. What happened with Ben Simmons? Who's the one who had the quote that set the guy off? That'd be Doc Rivers. Who's the guy who couldn't massage that ego all offseason and bring that quote-unquote star point guard back into the fold? Oh, that'd be Doc Rivers. Yeah. Buddy, tell me who's the guy who?
I know, dude. I gotta put a little bit on the player.
There are questions about what's been going on with this team since the Harden acquisition. You're hearing some rumblings that things aren't good. We've seen on the court Tobias Harris, James Harden, a little bit of friction, not always looking so great. Who's supposed to massage the egos? Oh, that's Doc Rivers. Okay. Yeah, no, not good.
James Harden looks like Uncle Drew.
Okay.
Except Uncle Drew might be better.
Uncle Drew also didn't have a fat suit on.
I mean, it's. I have a feeling, though. Listen. I'm not here to talk basketball, but I will because we're on it and it's Easter, right?
That's
so
right.
We're going to change it. Whether the Sixers fans are prepared for this, I have a feeling they're going to go down in an epic ball of flames.
There's a good chance,
and it's going to leave them wondering. It's going to leave them wondering what they are too, because Embiid's a very special player, but now you're going to start wondering if he's the guy that just can't win with all that talent.
Yep.
So. I don't know. Toronto's playing well. They're a very structured team, very much like they were with Kawhi when they won it 2 or 3 years ago with Lowry. Yep. Yeah, I do pay attention to small sports, but you know what? It's going to be interesting, Russ. And at least there's some playoffs coming. The reason it's always funny because the playoffs in the NHL and basketball usually run hand in hand. The series, and that's not happening this year because of the non-Olympic break that didn't happen with the Flyers. So. At least we get some playoffs starting.
Yeah.
Meaningful games, and hockey will follow suit at the end of the month.
If the Sixers win that series, it is going to be in spite of Doc Rivers. I think you're totally right. I think Nick Nurse is going to expose Doc Rivers worse than any other coach has to this point this season. Doc Rivers does not make adjustments. This man has somehow created this fake reality in his head that DeAndre Jordan is a legitimate backup center in this league. DeAndre Jordan,
he can't even play in the league anymore. He's done.
Like
he can't play.
Absolutely washed.
He's done. Yeah.
I mean, it's bad. So they lost their depth when they made the trade for Harden. The only thing that puts us over the top, the thing that would make me feel better, is if we knew that James Harden is going to come out and look like Houston James Harden. I need the guy who goes out and scores 30, 35 points a night. The facilitator, James Harden, is nice for chemistry, but I want the stone cold killer. I want the closer. I want the guy who goes out and can carry a team when the rest of the team is failing, or at least somebody who gives a legitimate second choice, a second option, frees things up for Joel Embiid. I swear to God, Bundy, if I watch this series and I am forced to watch Tobias Harris attempt like 12, 13 shots a game because James Harden keeps trying to facilitate, I might just stop. I might just stop watching basketball for the rest of the day.
Might have to buy you a new TV Monday, right, Russ?
I would never attack my TV. I like my TV. But I will say very profane things at the TV, at Doc Rivers, and at Tobias Harris. Well, I can't wait until they trade him in the offseason. But, hey.
Have a great
Easter, buddy.
Happy Easter to your family. Happy Passover to everybody in the Delaware Valley. We love you all. And we will catch up with you on the flip side next week. As I said, hopefully 2 definite guests. I've got confirmation, so I'm ready to go with it. I won't say who it is, but it'll be pretty fun. We will have a lot of fun with it for sure, and we'll continue our Flyers discussion as we move into the end of the regular season.
Make sure you follow Bundy on Twitter
at
CCharian6, me on Twitter at Joanna Broad, Snow the Goalie on Twitter and Facebook at Snow the Goalie. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, you can tell your Alexa, Echo, whatever, your anything Siri, anything with Google, you can tell all of them. Play the latest episode of Snow the Goalie Flyers podcast, bingo, bango, bongo, hands-free. You get to listen to our dulcet tones. Go over to youtube.com/crossingbroad. You can find the episode in video as well. So for Bundy, I'm Russ. For Anthony, wherever he is.
See you later, Anthony.
This is Snow the Goalie, the only Flyers podcast.